Lacrosse community. My name is Ryan Berns. I'm the founder of the Lacrosse Leadership Institute. It's our mission to empower all those that love lacrosse, to recognize the skills you gain from the sport to ultimately live your best life possible. Today, we're so fortunate to be joined by two gentlemen out in Houston, Texas, who were part of the foundation of the Houston Apollos. We've got Nicolosi and Trevor McCuiston with us today. Guys, thanks so much for being a part of our conversation today. For starters, those in our community that quite aren't aware of what's going on in Texas and what you're up to, can you share a little bit about your backgrounds first? How'd you get into lacrosse?
Yeah, Ryan, thanks for having both of us. It's a pleasure to be here. Lacrosse is definitely a growing sport in Texas, but you still have to have a little bit of luck to have the opportunity to play. So I got into lacrosse in a very fortunate way. My father played at the University of Houston when it was an early program. And that kind of got a stick in my head at an early age, but I didn't know that lacrosse existed until I was basically in high school and we had a team. And so that got me into it, and it made me an athlete. It just opened up so many doors for me, and I loved it. I ended up playing club at A&M and then got into coaching coming back. I think you've probably heard this from a million people, is there's this desire to give back to the game. And so I definitely caught that bug. So yeah, I coached for a while, and then did a lot of programming to open up the accessibility of the sport. I think going back to, it was just by chance that it was available to me. And I didn't think it's quite fair that that opportunity is not always present to everybody else, especially in Texas. It's a growing sport, but it's definitely not in the niched into the culture here. So I did a lot of camps and clinics aimed at opening up programs for people maybe of lower income or that didn't have those programs available in their schools, opening up clubs. And then, just got really, really deep into it. You can't stop saying yes to things because you fall in love with it. But that's kind of how I got into the sport. And then, yeah, just kind of grew from there.
Oh, that's awesome, Lewis. Thanks for giving us a little bit of a snippet of how you got involved. Trevor, what about yourself? How'd you get roped into lacrosse?
Yeah, my journey, a bit later in my life, but I believe I met Lewis in 2018 at a wheelchair basketball tournament with my brother. We were just rolling around, and then I believe Lewis came up to us and with his lacrosse stick and just told us about the sport. And then I think it maybe a month later, he held a practice at the gym there, and then I've just been hooked ever since. I can't stop thinking about it. I can't stop talking about it. It's been my life ever since.
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. So then maybe, Lewis, let's pop back to you. Share a little bit more your programming to just open up the game to anyone who's wanted to it. And then you shifted. Did Ryan Baker get you involved with Wheelchair Lacrosse USA, or how did the Houston Apollos come about?
Yeah, so I was coaching with some, and then we started doing this thing called a Sunday play day, just to get another day of practice for our players that just loved it and wanted to come out there. And we would just bring a gargantuan amount of equipment to a field, and anyone in the community that wanted to play, we would teach them. And it got to the point where, it didn't matter what school you went to or what age, or even if you had any intention on playing it in an organized manner, it was just kind of a fun time. And then we got started into volunteering at elementary school and middle schools to teach lacrosse at their gym classes. As a way to promote the game and grow the sport. So I probably taught lacrosse to around 10,000 kids over the course of about a year and a half, just going around to different schools and volunteering my time. It would be like a couple days out of the week, the full day. And I had this ability to do that because at the time I was going back to school to get into a graduate school program for physical therapy. And so fast forward a little bit, I'm volunteering at a rehabilitation hospital, talking to this young man who had recently had an injury that gave him a spinal cord injury. I was talking to him about my lacrosse coaching that I was going to do later that day, because we're just chatting and we're having a good time. And I remember him saying, "Man, I wish I had the opportunity to play lacrosse." And that was you do all this stuff throughout your career to try to open up the game, and then you realize here's something that, if he wants to play, why can't he? So at that time, I didn't know that wheelchair lacrosse existed, but I had every intention on making it happen. but thank goodness the Ryan Baker had already done it. So not very long after that experience, we found Ryan Baker, and actually I got to talk to him, and he just gave me so much information and resources on how he started his program. And so I basically found my way into the adaptive sports community through trying to set up this program. I'm fortunate that in Houston, there is a very strong and close community for adaptive sports. And I talked to the right people. I got some gym time. And then April 18th, 2017 was our first organized activity. So we just celebrated 5 years of being a program. And, I would just show up to a wheelchair basketball practice, and we just said, okay, today we're playing lacrosse. And you just wing it, you make it up as you go along. And there's always like roadblocks along the way. Like we had a few clinics here and there, had some good success, got some good momentum. Hurricane Harvey came through and kind of like paused all of the lacrosse things happening in our community. All of my fields were flooded. A lot of our parents and kids were having issues with their houses. So volunteer work was focused more on that. And so we had to take a slight pause of wheelchair lacrosse. And then when I got into physical therapy school, around that same time is when I started talking to Trevor, because I saw him in a basketball tournament, like he said, and I put a stick in his hand. I'm like, let's throw. And like he said, he got hooked onto it. And I think having people like Trevor involved is just this constant motivating force to continue. And when each year we see a little bit of growth, a little bit of momentum, a little bit of progress, that keeps you going. Then, I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago, this pandemic occurred that sort of got into our way a little bit more. So that shut down everything. And so we went from like really showing some strength and getting some consistency out there to basically everyone falling back. And this is for field lacrosse as well. It was, as you know, a tough time for everybody. Then last June, very end of June, early July, we started up organized activities again on Fridays. And it was month to month. We didn't know if a surge would occur and everything was shut down again. So July turned to August, and then August turned to September. And it's like, okay, we'll do it for one more month and then we'll take a break. And then more people started to get involved. More volunteers started to come, more consistency showed up. And then all of a sudden my players started to get a lot better. And Friday became a permanent fixture in the facility that was letting me use chairs, letting me use the court, letting me use all of their equipment. I had amassed a bunch of sticks, gloves, helmets. But I think the most important thing is I had that consistent player base that were excited about it. And then more recently, some exciting things have occurred. We've gone up to Fort Worth to watch the Panther City lacrosse program. We were invited up there, got to interact with some of the players there. We've been invited to the PLL games up in Dallas in July. And then we're excited that our goal is very attainable to go to nationals this August, which was just announced to be in Colorado. So like all of these things are starting to fall back into place. And we'll be bringing a lacrosse team up to play wheelchair lacrosse out of Texas, which doesn't have any prior wheelchair lacrosse programming. So our goals are really to build this team up, make it accessible to a new group of people, but really make a competitive program. And then in the future, grow it to San Antonio and Austin and Dallas so that the sport becomes more normalized. Because I think it's just, I've played lacrosse in a lot of different forms, and I can honestly say wheelchair lacrosse is one of the most fun ways you can play this game.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Louis, thanks for giving us even more background of this, and just we can feel the energy you have with it. You talked about just each little incremental step of success feeds that beast and makes you so you're more passionate about it. And it's just incredible to see the adversity that you face with a hurricane, a pandemic, and now you guys are going to be the first program to out of Texas for this adaptive sport come the tournament in Colorado. Really, really cool. I do want to pivot though. Yeah, my pleasure. I do want to pivot though, and Trevor, hear a little bit more from you. Can you share about your experience playing, as well as do you have a Pinnacle lacrosse moment?
So I've always been an athlete. My family were all super competitive, and I I just saw wheelchair lacrosse as a just new challenge for myself. And I guess most pinnacle moment you feel is when you score your first goal on a live goalie instead of like a trash can, which we have been using. But once you score your first goal, there's just no other feeling like it.
Oh, that's so cool. And Trevor, for those that aren't quite aware of wheelchair lacrosse and how it's played, can you share a little bit more about how you guys go about playing or practicing?
So typically we do one or two. We warm up with passing and catching, and then we try to do one or two shooting drills, and then we typically do about an hour worth of scrimmaging.
Oh my gosh. And how many people are doing scrimmaging? Is it 5-on-5 with 2 staying on the defensive side, 3 going back and forth, or what does that look like?
It really depends on our numbers that night, but typically, well, game is supposed to be 8v8. You have two attack, three midfielders, and you have two defense, and then you have a goalie.
Got it.
But usually our games are about four versus four, 5 versus 5.
Okay. And what position do you play?
I'm a midfielder. That's my
Okay. So you're going back and forth and really causing transition. How do you watch field lacrosse? How do you think it compares to field lacrosse or box lacrosse?
I watch all forms of lacrosse. I watch all forms of lacrosse as much as possible. Like on my way when my brother's driving, I'll watch the last year's nationals for wheelchair lacrosse just to try to get an edge on what my position is and what I should be doing, and then just getting on the scope of the future competition. It's just so literally I do anything I can to learn about the game.
Oh my gosh. Well, Trevor, we sense your passion in that as well. So you talk about watching some film. Sounds like that's how you're getting better. How else do you go about getting better in the sport?
Uh, I typically try. I've been getting into the gym a lot lately. I pushing up and down my street, and then I just anytime I can get my stick in my hand, they do that. Wall ball drills, cradling, just anything.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's awesome. And Lewis, you're the coach, right?
Yeah, that's right.
You've got the best players that are focused on getting better. That's incredible. What for you? What's your pinnacle lacrosse moment?
Yeah, kind of thinking back, probably coaching. There's this group of 5th and 6th graders on a team, and they just kind of came together. Everything was clicking throughout the season, and just the level of maturity in their game, the way it developed, is just kind of cool to see over time. But then them winning a couple games, really tough games, and getting in the playoffs one year. I still remember a certain game where I got to tell them like, "Hey, y'all won. Y'all are in the playoffs," and just how cool that was of a feeling. But you get to see that passion that you have transferred to somebody else. And I think that's always the goal of a coach, is you want to get them better at the game, but really understand the appreciation for that foundation of what lacrosse is and what it means. And you get to see that sometimes. And those group of guys they're in high school right now. And it's crazy watching them. And they just won their city championship yesterday. And it's just like really cool to see these young men develop. All the time you put into it makes it worth it. But yeah.
I think that's the coolest thing, is you can use a game to get people from different backgrounds together. And then the standards that the group sets for one another, or a coach comes in, sets a standard as the leader, and people start to rise to the occasion and become mature or take that on. And ultimately, those little actions of success, they compound upon themselves and they get bigger and bigger and bigger. And naturally, you get to a place where the success and winning and everything else comes together. Lewis, it seems like you're doing a lot of leadership right now, from coaching, programming, everything else. What does leadership mean to you?
Yeah, I think it's putting yourself out there and being willing to take on a lot of risk, a lot of effort for something that you believe in. I think all of the great coaches that I've seen have been an example to their players, and have been doing something for a higher purpose than just winning. It's about developing aspects of the game, or just developing these young men in order to be better athletes and better people, and creating opportunities for others. So if you can leave something having more opportunities than when you got there, you've affected the world in a positive way. And there you go. You've done your job as the leader.
Oh, I'm right with you there in terms of having that positive impact and making sure that things are better for that next generation. Trevor, for you, when you're going up and down the field that you guys have, and you're in the trenches and in any part of life, what does leadership mean for you?
I really like everything that Lewis said, but when I think of leadership, I really think of just Lewis in general. He's just very good at letting you know what your abilities are. Like me, I have this thing where I want to do more advanced things rather than just the simple passing and catching. I want to learn how to do the cradles, the behind the back passes. And he has this ability to say, well, yeah, that's good, and I'll show you this, but really what you should be focusing on is this. And I think leadership is about putting others before yourself, and helping them, and really just trying to keep a positive attitude and trying to keep everything happy, and yeah.
I love that. And I think that's a sign of a good leader, is that testament, Trevor, that you're talking about, is Lewis is able to bring the team back on track. He'll be able to share something that is fun and exciting, like those behind the back passes, but then we can get the team working together towards that common goal and having that positive experience. Trevor, for you, we talk about lacrosse, we talk about life and the impacts that it has on one another. Can you share a little bit about how lacrosse is impacting you right now?
Oh, where do I begin? I spent most of my life playing wheelchair basketball, and then meeting Lewis and getting involved in wheelchair lacrosse has given me a new perspective on life and a new perspective on being an athlete and a competitor. I ever since being a part of this, I just want to grow the sport in Texas, and I want to grow it just over the world, and I want to get better as a player, and I want to get better as a leader. There's just so much this has helped me so much since starting in years back.
Wow. Thanks, Trevor, for sharing that. And Lewis, for you, for me, that would be so impactful as a coach. But can you share how lacrosse has affected your life, Lewis?
Yeah, I grew up playing soccer at the YMCA. I wouldn't say I was super athletic or anything. And even starting in high school, I weighed like 100 pounds. And every practice, I would get laid out like crazy and just have to peel myself off the ground constantly. So it forced me in a position where it's like your body has to change. And you have to figure out how to do that. And I was having fun with it. So like I said, it developed me into an athlete, and it kind of taught me like you can start out, you don't have to have this natural ability, and you can get really good at something if you just put the work into it. And that mentality of like you just grind through it and you put the work in, I've applied that to so many things, because you've seen the success once, you can apply it towards other aspects. I think currently it provides this kind of infrastructure that I can rest back on of a purpose. So whether it's I'm doing patient care or research here and there, I'm very busy, but there's always this constant in the background. Like I get to play wheelchair lacrosse on Friday, I get to play field lacrosse on Sunday, and anytime I need to, I can go to the wall and meditate. So it's just this structure in place that allows me to continue. And then, like I said, it's an avenue to give back, and I like to do that with coaching or wheelchair lacrosse or however it is. But it's cool to see. I think a lot of people have the same experience. I was at an airport in Newark a few weeks ago. Flights were delayed 5 hours. So I was just eating a late dinner, and these two guys were next to me talking for like 2 hours, and then lacrosse came up. Both of them had experience playing lacrosse growing up. Both of them coached. Both of them want to give back. And it's just like this way to bond. And I think that's really cool. I don't get to see that in a lot of other aspects. So any way that we can share that with other people is something that I think we have a responsibility as ambassadors of the game to do so.
Oh, absolutely. I love that aspect of responsibility of being an ambassador, to be able to, again, tie into the leadership aspect, make the world a better place than when we came into it. And then the resiliency and the grit that you talked about in terms of being a freshman, just getting pounded to the ground, figuring out how to get yourself back up. That's part of our character. That's integrity. And that's how we show up time and time again. You guys, I can't thank you enough for being on here. And unfortunately, our time is coming to an end. I'd like to start with you, Lewis. Are there any last thoughts or anything you could share with us about lacrosse or leadership?
Yeah, I think you probably can see in the players that you coach who the next leaders are, but you also have to understand that there's others that you can't see, and they will make their time and they'll make their move. And so you have to give everybody the same respect and the same opportunities and push everybody equally, because that next generation is going to do better things that you did. And so you have to do your best to foster that and provide them with every opportunity you can.
Oh, absolutely. The next generation seems to keep pushing the envelope and taking all the skills and everything else that we have. Trevor, for you, do you have any last thoughts on lacrosse or leadership you could share with all of us today?
Yeah, I'm just thankful to have found the sport, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to grow it and help hopefully one day show the entire world that lacrosse is a beautiful sport. And yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey, we're going to be cheering you guys on as you head to Colorado. I know that we're on Instagram. We connected with you guys. Is there anywhere else that people can reach out to you guys and connect with you?
Yeah, we do a lot of things through Facebook as well. So we post a lot of our news or our pictures through that and Instagram. But yeah, and I encourage anyone watching to seek out to see if there's a wheelchair lacrosse program in your city, and go and watch that, because it's a competitive sport. It's full contact and it's just a lot of fun. So get involved in any way you can as a audience member, or try to volunteer and just see what you can do.
Well, thank you guys so much again for being here. You guys have a wonderful day.